AD 752.
In the papermaking room of Samarkand, an old man named Du, already used to being a prisoner of war. Only occasionally when I fetch water to soak the bark. Only then would he think of the morning a year ago, while he was cleaning his armor on the banks of the Dallos River. The water is equally cold. On that day, we were far from the hometown of the great poet Li Bai. The years have become 500 miles in the Daros Valley. Xuanjia of 30,000 Tang troops. Under the scorching sun, there is a dark and cold light. On the opposite side is 100,000 white-robed Arab coalition troops. The first whistle. It was the 300 Tang army that broke through the air at Wei 13 Ke. The steel rainstorm caused by Fu Yuannu covers the impact risk of the righteous cavalry. Then the knife-sharpening formation formed by the Anshi elders, moving forward with neat steps, cut the surviving righteous cavalry into pieces, both men and horses. Flesh falls. The Arab Empire seemed to be at its peak. Nor is he a match for the mighty Tang dynasty. However, the allies on the flanks of the Tang army, the Grola people, suddenly rebelled. Like a desert couche, another line of defense is torn open. With embroidered exegy, the new Red Avenue in Dusko was cut down. The Tang army was caught off guard and was attacked from both sides. Neat military formation, completely torn apart by 100,000 Arabs, relying on the desperate fight of 700 knife sharpeners. In the end, only a few thousand Tang troops returned to Anshi. The remaining Tang troops were either killed or captured. In the long scroll of time, evolution of civilization, just like a voyage on a wave-like cloud track. Those key turning points that turn things around. Often it does not come from careful destruction. It comes from countless accidents. The Battle of Daros to the Tang dynasty. It's an out-and-out bad thing. After this battle, the Tang army's conquest in Central Asia came to an abrupt end. And then the Angshi rebellion broke out. Anshi army was judged by Zhongyuan. It also caused a Tang to completely lose Central Asia, until today, but for all mankind. In terms of development history, the Battle of Daros is in another dimension, promoted the process of human civilization. It is known, human civilization from feudal society to industrial society, the Renaissance that began in the 15th century. Then came the European technological explosion and the Industrial Revolution. But has anyone thought about it? Why Europe in the Middle Ages? For 1,000 years, they've all been groping in the dark. In the 15th century, there was a sudden renaissance. The reason is simple. The cost of knowledge dissemination has been reduced. Over a period of 1,000 years, the carrier of knowledge dissemination in Europe has always been parchment books. Although the parchment book is very cool, but it is an out-and-out luxury product. First of all, it is expensive. One piece of parchment can produce at most 4 to 6 pages of parchment. How many sheep does a book cost? Also, labor is expensive. It takes a copywriter a month to copy a book. Florence in 1282. Set of handwritten Bibles on parchment, worth 60 florins.
Calculate this way.
A Bible costs about 150,000 yuan. Manufacturing of books, originally an important way to spread knowledge, but because of its expensive price, books are very scarce. Ordinary people have no access to books at all. In this way, since the birth of knowledge, it is responsible for inheriting the things of human civilization, firmly monopolized by the church and the nobility. But 2 inventions from China revolutionized Europe. During the Battle of Dallos, a large number of Tang troops were captured. Among them are people who know how to make paper. When the Arabs discovered, when Chao Ji was carried in the arms of the Futong army, it's like seeing a treasure. So the papermaking technology from the Tang dynasty began to spread in the Arab Empire. These Tang Jun would not have thought of. Their papermaking skills spread to Europe. And add the price of the paper down to 10% of parchment. What kind of civilizational shockwave will it cause? By 1175, Fabriano Paper Mill, Italy. Annual output has reached 3 million sheets. Although cheap paper has greatly reduces the cost of acquiring knowledge, but the efficiency of copying is still very low. Verb's superbook process of several months, still a bottleneck in knowledge dissemination. Then China sent movable type printing technology. 1455 German Johannes Gutenberg, based on Chinese movable type printing, developed its own metal movable type printing press. This machine can print 3,000 pages a day. It's worth a year of polishing and copying. Although the first book he printed was the Bible, but the neat German text suddenly appeared on the paper. From the moment of words, nothing can stop me anymore. Knowledge spreads at low cost. Papermaking and printing. The impact on the development of civilization is revolutionary. After the collapse of the super experience system controlled by the church, the cost of knowledge acquisition plummets by 100 times. Paper and printing press, giving ordinary people the right to read. The calm divine comedy no longer belongs to the Florentine aristocracy. It's the talk of tavern poets. Latin privilege of mythical beasts collapsed into German. French English orgy.
Bishops will be in disbelief.
They are at the top of the ivory tower. A pamphlet circulated in a tavern first. Go down to the altar. The flames of the church inquisition burn brighter. It can't catch up with the poetry world that spreads on paper. The final 95 theses of Martin Luther. Galileo's divination. Paper printing begins in continental Europe. Spread wantonly. Finally tore off the cognitive shackles of feudal society. After all, when luxury goods become daily necessities, the monopolist can no longer contain the flood of ideas. And when the cost of knowledge replication falls below the critical value, the number of people who learn knowledge can also form a love relationship. The reaction brought about a technological explosion. The reason is very simple. When knowledge is in the hands of 100 people, even if I spend my whole life, breakthrough is difficult. And when knowledge is in the hands of tens of millions of people, even if most people are mediocre, but as long as 1,000 of them are geniuses, their flash of inspiration, it is enough to promote the progress of human civilization.
Let's look at math.
Physics. You will find it in the history books of chemistry majors. Human technological progress, usually among the general public, promoted by a few. Kai Luenhe would never have thought of it in his life. They invented papermaking and printing. Will be after a defeat, like a dandelion seed. Let the continent thousands of miles away be filled with the flowers of civilization. More than 1,000 years later, in 2024, in an office building in Gongshu District, Hangzhou, engineers are debugging the latest large model. If we say that they are different from the Tang dynasty back then, what do craftsmen have in common? That is, they are all doing the same thing to keep the fire of knowledge alive, break through class barriers, because their deposit model is open source. What is open source? In computer field,
It can be simply understood as
expose your own metacode, design ideas and underlying architecture, etc. Open source thinking. In fact, it can be traced back to the early days of computer development. At that time, programmers often work in small circles, share code with each other, improve software together. Everyone has a chance. Participate in the process of cutting-edge technological innovation. Become a key player in driving technology development. Open source truly becomes a social movement. Actually, we have to start from the 1980s. At that time, Stallman, a programmer at MIT. I found that my printer kept jamming when I pinched it. Desperate to live in pain, he feels there must be a problem with the printer driver. I just want to find the manufacturer, Shile Company. Request driver programmer code. Want to study it, but what? Shro refuses to provide this metacode. This kind of technical monopoly is complete. Angered the liberal programmer, Stroman then launched more plans. Scream a declaration that shakes the times. Software should be as free as air. From then on, the concept of free software was born. Later, under the operation of a group of Silicon Valley elites, the movement is renamed open source and established OSI, specific AI fields. There is also a debate between open source and closed source. Take OpenAI, a research and development company with a GDP of 10%, as an example. Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI,
was a typical open source activist.
in 2015, a reporter asked him, "It is safer to have a small number of AI systems controlled by large companies. Is it safer to use a large number of independent systems?" Ultraman chose the latter without hesitation. Ultraman then founded OpenAI, claimed to be for the benefit of mankind, fighting Google's monopoly, building open artificial intelligence. So, in the name of your company, I also brought in open. The result is OpenAI, open source. After several large models that were not very successful, once we reach GPT-3, we will be closed off. Not to mention the later GTP 3.5 and OE. Why is the park closed? Ultraman found a bunch of reasons. For example, open source may bring security risks. The park is closed to ensure the safety of the model and controllability. For example, external competition is very fierce. Closing the campus can ensure that OpenAI technology is not easy to copy. For example, making money through business applications, thus gathering more computing power and talents. Form a virtuous cycle. etc. In fact, it's all nonsense. The boy who slayed the dragon back then, now he has become a dragon. Just thinking about shining gold coins. Currently open, AI has initially established a business model and token economy by providing API paid services to users, pricing based on token usage, then come and make huge profits, then use good profit expectations, make more money from the stock market. But the problem is, the most versatile large model can't meet everyone's needs, and GPT is too expensive. The poor cannot afford it. So the open source big model came into being. The first open source is Meta's large model Rama. Although Rama is an open source pioneer, but his open source is fake open source. Only the trained model is disclosed, but the training code and training data are not disclosed. Moreover, the inscription requirement can only be used for scientific research, cannot be used on products. And what about DPC? Not only open sourced 1.5B, 7B, 14B, 32B, 70B, and 670B multiple types of models. Even relevant training data, both the code and MOE architecture, are open source and provides a basic development toolkit. What is this concept? Meaning as long as your computer is good enough, you can deploy DPSIC locally. Use AI without spending a penny. You can also use the DPSIC model using distillation technology. Get rid of the aspects that need to be retained. Form a dedicated model. It doesn't matter if you let him see the doctor on your behalf. It's better to ask him to write the materials for you. You can do whatever you want. If your skills are good enough, you can even use DBC, publishable training data, code, and algorithms. Rent a server, then create a cyberspace that is exclusive to you. Girlfriend big model. Fulfill all your fantasies. For example, BUN is equivalent to eating at a Michelin restaurant. Spending money to open source is equivalent to cooking for yourself, in addition to the money for food. No need to spend money on anything else. The problem with BUN is that Michelin restaurant dishes are standardized, difficult to adjust to your taste. And Kaiyuan is like putting together a Michelin dish recipe. Shared it. Every process, every detail is left to you. You just need to put less sugar or more. Add some salt to make it more suitable to your taste. Dishes with the same quality as Michelin standards. In this way, everyone can become a Michelin chef. For example, after India opened DPSIC, I immediately jumped out and said that I plan to refer to DPSIC. Within the next 10 months, developed local large language model. The UK also said, learn from DPSIC. Could help UK become Europe's AI hub. See here. We are proud of. Maybe there are some doubts. We worked hard to create a deep SEC. Why can it be used for free in the UK and India? Then, aren't we making wedding clothes for others? In fact, this question goes to the core of the problem. Why does China's AI choose the open source path? Very simply, for the future of human civilization. Anyone who has played Cyberpunk 2077 knows this. The bizarre night city. It's actually a place full of corruption and darkness. Here, the entire city is essentially owned by a multinational company, controlled by Huangban Group. AGI biotechnology and other cutting-edge technologies has penetrated into all aspects of social life. Although these technologies have brought forward progress to mankind, unprecedented ability, but it has also become a tool of exploitation and oppression. Huangban Group controls technological resources, further consolidate their rights and status. Classy people come and go at the top of skyscrapers. There are flying cars high up in the sky, but the bottom is committing crimes. Violent competition for resources makes life difficult for Chinese people. Just imagine the future of AGI, monopolized by a certain company or country. The world of cyberpunk may no longer be a game, but our descendants, the cruel reality that must be faced. Don't think this is alarmist. January 21st, 2025, Trump's second day in office. At once, can't wait to announce America's Stargate, the door to planned economy in simple terms. Just pass. Over $500 billion in capital investment. Build the world's leading AI infrastructure. America's debt problem is almost bankrupt.
Trump, why spend so much money to shrink AI?
Trump's real purpose, just through simple and crude heaping of computing power. Be the first to implement AGI. Enable self-study and solution. Ability to solve problems that have never been trained. Use nearly unlimited AI computing power to replace the limited computing power of the human brain. Finally, through exhaustive methods, the human race has been deceived and deceived for decades. All scientific research projects that are getting frustrated bit by bit. Find the right answer as quickly as possible and maintain America's lead. It's really come to this this point. Do you really think they would be like that? Kindly give the results of investing so much, free for all mankind to use. Don't use profits to test human nature, because human nature cannot stand the test. When a company takes the lead in realizing AGI, then there is no doubt he will monopolize the entire industry, get amazing wealth. When a country takes the lead in realizing AGI, then there is no doubt he will use AI as a tool to dominate the world. Think about a time when only the United States had nuclear weapons, how he blackmailed the whole world. In a sense, AGI is more terrifying than the nuclear weapons of the year, because the principles of nuclear weapons are public. Just tighten your belt. Withstand international pressure with strong determination. Nuclear weapons can be produced, but the problem is, AGI is different from nuclear weapons. The United States has two big weapons in its hands: AI's first mover advantage and GPU monopoly. These two big killers are huge moats. If you pile up graphics cards like Americans do, if you pile up data and pile up resources, it will never be better than the United States. It will never be able to keep up with the United States. Want America? Limit your algorithms and get high-performance GPUs. You will be locked at the bottom forever. Can't cross the threshold of ATM. What to do? Open source is a conspiracy. It acts as a wall ridge and muscle base. The wall ridge is because of open source, completely leveling the threshold for AI in a short period of time. Let AI cover everyone. Although GPT was very awesome before, but it not only charges. Moreover, there are targeted restrictions on mainland China and use by users from Hong Kong and Macau. I almost had the word night written on my face. Therefore, its application popularity is not very large. But what happens after the deposit is open sourced. Even if you don't understand the 5 elements and Bagua at all, but just download an app on your phone. I can give it to my relatives when I go home during the Chinese New Year. The elders tell fortunes. Asking questions and returning again and again. Da is not a person who is also learning. Better understand humans. Give better answers. This is also an iteration and evolution for him. Once at an international software development conference, a foreign developer asked a Chinese programmer, "How come your software iterates so quickly? Iterate a version in a few days. Is it because you employ tens of thousands of programmers?" The Chinese programmer gave a wry smile, but it was not. It's because we have hundreds of millions of users, helping us test new features. If you find anything dissatisfying, you will scold us to death. This is the route DBC takes. Feedback with hundreds of millions of information to accelerate technological progress, waiting for global users. When small and medium-sized enterprises start to use DBC, the ecology is established. The market is coming. Won't the money also come? More importantly, after open source, not only are there hundreds of millions of users helping to test, there are several more. Millions of programmers are involved in research and development. How many people are needed for traditional AI R&D? Take OpenAI as an example. There are 390 core R&D positions. The strength is relatively strong, but it takes a year or two to iterate a model. And what about after open source? All programmers around the world who are interested in large models. Anyone can participate. Quickly fix vulnerabilities with the help of crowd tactics. Optimize performance. Kaiyuan makes genius no longer need a license. Whether you have a job in a big factory or not, you are all qualified to study large models. According to statistics Jeter doesn't recognize, the number of software developers in China has exceeded 9.4 million, approximately 1/3 of the world's. Get help on the world's largest code community. The growth rate of Chinese AI projects is 3 times that of English. Chinese technology companies contribute 35% of the top AI papers can say. 20 years of science and engineering education in China reserved the world's #1 computer talents. These are the capital for China to realize AGI in the future. Among China's hundreds of millions of science and engineering graduates, how many people want to deploy DeepSeek locally? Among China's 9.4 million software developers, how many people will participate in DeepSeek's adjustment, testing, and improving? And don't forget, there are more than 10 million foreign developers. Their DeepSeek performance is no less than GDP, also full of interest. A saying circulating in GitHub circles: when you generously open the door to technology, the smartest brain in the world, they all knock on the door with gifts. In other words, after DBC class starts, it is equivalent to inviting developers from all over the world. Participate in research and development. There are only 100 people here who have a flash of inspiration can be like the star-shining masters of mankind, become a turning point in human civilization. This is China. In this technological revolution that is closest to mankind. In the case of insufficient computing power and late development, the only chance of victory, the base is aimed at the American Stargate. When Stargate was announced at the beginning of the year, American newspapers boasted without hesitation that this is the Manhattan Project for a new era. The Manhattan Project allowed the United States to dominate the past, and Stargate will ensure America's future dominance. It is worth mentioning that Stargate's $500 billion US. A large part of it comes from Europe, Japan, Korea, and the Middle East. In addition to solving the problem of insufficient funds, still want to use this kind of investment? Let these countries bind their interests to the United States. On the one hand, it provides a market for AGI applications in the United States. On the other hand, China is completely isolated. Let China become an AI island.
But now,
DBC-1 Kaiyuan, America's Stargate project. I can't do it anymore. The total cost of DBC is only $5 million US. That's why Hue, a large model, about the same level as Iraq. If you were Europe, investors from Japan, South Korea, and the Middle East, would you put a high bid on Stargate? Create doubt. Are the Americans trying different ways to steal my money? With this money, why don't I do it myself? Or give 10% of your money to China? Wouldn't it be nice to let China save 90% of the money? This is a bit like the mother-in-law group's painstaking efforts. There is a chance of getting the evil repelling sword book. Since the palace was refined, go out. I unexpectedly discovered that someone had printed the evil repelling sword manual into a book. Sell on the street. Anyone who sells meat or sings can buy a copy. And the most important thing is that there is no need for a uterus. How do you think Yu Buchuan is feeling at this moment? Do you feel like the sky is falling? What's more, DePisic does this. Disrupt OpenAI's API profit model. After all, there is free DePisic available, who spends money to use GPT. It forced Ultraman to announce GPT-5 will be fully open. All registered users of ChatGPT will be available for free and unlimited use. No more huge amounts of money invested. Once again, the United States and China pulled to the same starting line, and the United States can only watch helplessly. Look at your unrivaled advantages in the field of AI. Become a hero's weapon. Every country can enjoy AGI. Development brought about opportunity for every ordinary person. Everyone can enjoy the convenience of life brought by AGI.
guaranteed AGI
Will not be born in a monopoly country. To the development of human civilization, leaving the last hope of freedom. New Year's Eve 2025. A letter circulated online. It is said to be written by Liang Wenfeng, the founder of DePisic, responded to game science founder, Black Myth Wukong producer Feng G. DePisic, probably at the national level, praise for scientific and technological achievements, although it was later proven that the letter was fake. But it's really well written. We excerpt the following. Must confess, when the team read the description, national sports level, everyone's scalp is numb. We are just standing in Kaiyuan, on the shoulders of community giants. Give this building a large domestic model. Tighten a few more screws, because of the 6 breakthroughs mentioned. In fact, every link condenses a more touching story. That mini model that can run on a mobile phone. Inspired by a middle school teacher in Gansu. Issue raised on Gathic. Support online search function. Be an internal beta user for 30 consecutive days. Submitted bug at 3 a.m.
fed in Japan.
And last week, a visually impaired developer made a scent navigation application using our API when he demonstrated how to vibrate at different frequencies when identifying street shops. The entire conference room was so quiet that you could hear the graphics card, the hum of the fan. At that moment, my eyes suddenly became hot. I finally understand what you mean about water and electricity. The truly great thing is never a model, but millions of ordinary people, with the ripples of kindness he created. Mr. Feng said knowledge and trust. Full comment. This is the motivation behind our papers every night. 3 years ago, in a small warehouse on Tang Road, Yuhang, we used markers to write on the glass wall. Let children in the most remote mountain villages, Nung and Silicon Valley engineers, use equally smart AI teaching assistants. Although we are still far from this dream. But every time I see screenshots of conversations shared by netizens, I think all the lost hair is worth it. Finally, I want to say to everyone,
Please leave the applause to
every Chinese developer who is rewriting the rules. When you debug the model on the bus, drawing architectural diagrams in front of the breakfast stall, optimization ideas suddenly popped up in the delivery room. This is the moment of national sports level. DeepSeek is willing to be a match in everyone's code wilderness. But what really ignited the the fire of AI. It will always be the undying curiosity and persistence in your eyes. Judging from the wording and writing style, this letter is most likely written by the DBC itself. As expected of a Chinese, a large model trained by myself can accurately find the tier points of Chinese people. Maybe this exciting stimulus also recognizes one's own mission. That's like paper and printing, bringing the brilliance of AI through open source, spread to every corner of the world, breaking the ancient curse that knowledge must be attached to power. Devastation, more than 1,300 years later, history reaches a crossroads again. Humanity once again faces an ancient choice. Knowledge should be locked in parchments or spread it on paper. February 11th World Artificial Intelligence Action Summit ended in Paris, France. French China. 61 signatories, including India, signed the Paris Declaration on Artificial Intelligence, co-published on Development Inclusion. Sustainable Artificial Intelligence, a statement that benefits people and the planet. Commitment to open, developing this technology in an inclusive and ethical way. But the United States and its ally Britain refused. Sign a joint statement. Does this look like the monopoly of knowledge by the church and the nobility in the Middle Ages? The Kaiyuan movement advocated by China. It is the creation, the spiritual continuation of paper technology and movable type printing. Maybe China's AI open source won't make money for the time being, but the concession of individual short-term interests. But it can lead to a long-term explosion of civilization. Just like paper-making books failed to make Kai Luan rich, the metal magnetic printing machine also failed to save Gutenberg's bankruptcy. But the result has been a spike in cross rates across Europe. Gave birth to Descartes. Human stars like Newton. What? This current trend. There is a high probability that this will happen again with artificial intelligence and deposit and the Chinese style it represents. High-performance, open-source route is the future of mankind, maybe in the near future. In Bangladesh, fishermen can use the fine-tuned DeepSeek model, predict the trajectory of fish schools. In Kenya, newly graduated black college student can use fine-tuned DeepSeek model, agricultural disaster early warning. In India, an Indian college student can use the deposit model, accurate fundus screening for diabetes. Let more people not bid farewell to the light, except days since childhood. The Chinese, who also inherited the education of the world, no matter how far it develops, always believe the ultimate meaning of technology is not exclusiveness, but to illuminate more people. Compared to the United States that is shouting to make America great again, China holds high the banner of a community with a shared future for mankind. Only then will we be more qualified to control the future of humans and AI. 2,000 years ago, China exported 4 great inventions through the Silk Road. 2,000 years later, China via fiber optic cable, delivering embedded technology to the world. Intelligent fire of equal rights spirit. History has proven paper will run over parchment. The printer shreds the manuscript. So now, China Kaiyuan's AI. It will also break all the chains of closed garden hegemony, maybe the whole world. Only China has lasted 5,000 years of civilization. Only then can we truly understand the true meaning of civilization. Never lock knowledge in a safe, but let him burn like wildfire across the wasteland.